Buying a Tesla is a very exciting thing, and there's a lot to it. If you just bought one, congratulations. If you've had one for a while, also congratulations. What you'll notice is that there are a lot of settings on screen. There's all of these menus with settings that you can customize. There's settings within the Tesla app, and sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. Today I'm going to break down all the best settings in a Tesla that I've found to be the case, and also talk about what every setting is so that you can customize it to your liking. I'll be using a Model 3 today, so these settings will apply both to a Model 3 and a Model Y, and mostly to a new Model X and S as well, but some extra things will be on those cars. I'll walk through the basics as well as all the nitty-gritty settings that there are to customize in a Tesla, so let's get into it. So the first step when you get into a Tesla is going to be to set up driver profiles. Now this is a little more complicated than it may seem, and there's a lot that you can do with it. Sometimes when you're in the zoomed out view, this will be up here, but sometimes it actually disappears, and if it's not there, then you have to click into settings, and then it will be right up here. Right now it says easy entry, but if you click that, you'll see all your driver profiles. There's a couple that I like to set up right off the bat. I have an eat profile that is a secondary profile so that I can just tap it and my seat goes back into a comfortable eating position if I'm sitting and eating in my car. And a lot of people like to put a guest profile here as well. I haven't done that yet, but that ensures that if someone else gets in your car or you give it to someone at a car wash or something, they don't mess with your settings. You can put it into that and it will stay there. So here you will open this up and then you can click driver profile settings, and this is where you would add a new one. So I'm going to call this profile guest, create profile. And what you'll notice right away is that it wants you to adjust mirrors and steering wheel. I've always found this a bit odd because I want to adjust the seat first, and then these positions will change based on where my seat is. But once I go to adjust the seat, it's not here, it's actually over here. It used to be covered up, but now it is there. So I'm going to adjust, get in the proper seating position that I feel comfortable in, and then click save. But those options now disappeared because I clicked saved over here. Definitely an odd thing, and I wonder why that's the case. But to get into it again, it's in controls right here, and you'll see mirrors and steering. So steering wheel here, click save, mirrors, do all my adjustments, and you'll see that the left scroll wheel controls everything. Then you change to the right mirror, and it's all on the left scroll wheel. You can also change these settings. So mirror auto tilt will fold the mirrors down when you're backing up automatically. If you want that on, you can have them auto fold and auto dim. You can turn all of those settings off if you prefer. I personally like to use all of them, and mirror tilt can especially help avoiding curb rash. Also, the steering wheel does have a pretty good range of motion back and forward, so just play with that a little bit because sometimes people sit a little too far forward because the wheel is so far forward, but if you bring the wheel back, you can sit a little further back. In any case, once those are adjusted, click save, and that will be saved to that profile you created called guest. But then there's a couple other settings here, so you click in here, go to driver profile settings, click on guest, and easy entry is something you can enable. Now easy entry is actually set up as its own profile essentially, but what it is the settings to make it easiest to get in and out of your car, and it'll automatically go into those when you go into park and take off your seatbelt. Especially for the Model 3 and the Model S, I find it very useful because when you're in your driving position in these cars, you're pretty tight in there and it's kind of a shimmy to get out. But if you have easy entry on, when you get out of the car, it'll automatically adjust, and then when you get in the car, it will be an easy entry. You press the brake, fasten your seatbelt, and it enters into your driver profile. So I'm going to go ahead and enable easy entry right there. Now actually the next step for driver profiles here is that you can actually link keys to driver profiles, and this is a great feature because me and my wife each have our profiles, and we each have our own keys that are linked to their driver profiles. So you can see right here, Ryan's iPhone 13 Pro is Ryan. Jessica's iPhone is Jessica. And the way to link these is with this little icon right here, and so this will link to whatever profile is currently selected. So I have a key card right here, and I'm just going to go ahead, that is not linked to a profile, so I'm going to link that to guest. And as you can see, guest is now shown right there. If you're really adamant about your driver profile and you have a guest driving your car, what might happen is you give them your key card and then they scan it and it's linked to your driver profile, and they're going to end up messing it up anyway because they don't know how to change. So what you want to do actually is take your key card and link it like I just did to the guest profile. This is something that's very useful to do, and I use it all the time, and make sure that I'm linking like this. It can be a little annoying, but it is well worth it. Now that's a lot of stuff to say there, but the reason driver profiles are so important is because all these settings that I'm going to go through are saved to your driver profile. So the first settings I like to adjust are in the dock, which is something that is new with the version 11 software. So with the latest Tesla software, you can adjust and customize your dock down here. Some people love this because they can put only what they need there. Other people don't like it as much because they're used to being more options down here. I personally am a fan because I only need some particular things at any given time. But the way you change it is with these 3 dots right here, and it'll bring up this whole menu to customize your dock. Now what you'll notice at first is this is all app stuff. None of it is like controls related as far as climate controls or anything. You have your climate temperature right here, but if you want to put heated seats, where can you do that? Well, that will pop up once you press and hold. So if I press and hold on an icon, they pop up right here. So I can add front defroster, rear defroster, left seat, wipers, all that stuff. In the time when I'm gonna need my heated seats again, I'll probably add my heated seat back down here somewhere. And the nice thing is the heated seat option will actually move this over and go right here. It's not taking up an app slot versus where the other ones, they will take up an app slot. For me personally, I just like to put my rear view camera here because I like having that accessible at all times to check on my cameras. Then I put Tidal here because I now use Tidal over Spotify. It's actually a much better experience in a Tesla. Then I have Bluetooth because obviously I'm going to use my phone Bluetooth from time to time. Other people might really want their energy display down there. You can also put phone, calendar, games, all that stuff, and then your recent apps will automatically show here. So this is what you can customize. This is what will automatically be popping up based on what you're using most frequently. And again, those things are being saved to your driver profile. You can tell right here, if I switch this, it says saving up here. If I switch it back, it says saving. So that's what I do most times. I like that right here is my climate and my temperature, and then right here is my rear cameras. Now, an interesting thing about the climate controls that I'll talk about for a second is that you have to use a menu here and you have to adjust it on screen. A lot of people don't like this, but again, this is saved to your driver profile. So for me, it took maybe about a week of adjusting this until I found the position that I have literally not touched in the last year of using this car. So the first week you might be like, oh, I have to go into a menu to adjust the vent, I can't just move it. But what you'll find is that each time you get into the car, it remembers your vent position and it remembers my wife's vent position. So it's actually way better than having to move vents every time someone else got in your car. Now, a random real quick tip here that doesn't have to do with the settings in this car is that if you need to get out and the car has completely lost power, there's an emergency release right here, right next to where the window control options are. A lot of people actually use this by accident when they first get in the car, but then it seems like Tesla owners seem to forget. And I've heard some stories where people don't actually realize there's a manual release right here. It's not something you actually ever really want to use unless it's an emergency because it rips the window through the trim, whereas the window normally lowers, but it's really important to know that it's there in case of emergency. So now in settings, you have all of your basic controls. Auto lights have worked great for me. I don't usually use auto brights myself because I find them to be a little too touchy. You can turn on child lock here. You can turn off the wipers. I use auto wipers, but sometimes if it's a little too touchy, you could just turn it off and use it manually with the stock. And then of course there's Sentry mode here. This will just turn on Sentry mode or turn it off. Next, if we go into pedals and steering, I like to keep this on standard because the acceleration isn't insane in this car. But if you really want to maximize efficiency and don't want to ever be doing any sort of launching, you can go into chill. I particularly like it in comfort, but some people like it in standard. And then I think hold is the best stopping mode by far. Creep and roll will be something that will help you transition from a normal vehicle, but hold is going to be the best experience for true one pedal driving. And that means when you come to a stop, you can let off any pedal and it will hold for you. Next up is charging. So in here, you can choose your daily maximum charge. So I personally like to keep this at 80 or potentially 90%. This car is actually a standard range car, so we actually sometimes do 70% so that we have more regen braking available at all times for one pedal driving, but 80 or 90% is the recommendation from Tesla. You can adjust that here, or you can adjust that in the app. Depending on how you're charging, you can change your charge current at this current location, and it will save it from then on. So every time you charge there, it will automatically choose less amps if it's required. I previously had to use this because I actually had a NEMA 1450 plug installed on a 30 amp breaker improperly, so I had to make sure this only used 80% of 30 amps as opposed to 80% of 50 amps, which the car thought it had. And then right here is schedule. Sometimes this can be a bit confusing, but the option right here is scheduled departure at this location. So you can schedule to depart at a certain time and it will precondition and have the car charged by then. But I actually prefer to switch to scheduled charging because I want it to charge only during my off-peak hours. So I clicked switch and then I turn this on and I'm going to change it to 9 p.m. So now it knows at this location, every time that I plug in, it will only start charging at 9 p.m. Very, very useful if you have off-peak energy hours. Another quick thing that's kind of a setting is with the trunk, and this applies to all new Model 3s and Ys that have an automatic hatch or trunk/hatch. If you find the opening height of the Model 3 or Y to be too high, maybe this is going to hit your garage, just lower it to where it needs to be. It'll stay there, and then you press and hold until you hear a confirmation beep. And now it's only going to open this far. Next up is Autopilot settings. So I don't have the full self-driving beta or even the full self-driving package. I don't find it worth the price at this point, but auto steer is enabled. All this stuff is enabled. And then you can set these offsets. So when you go into Autopilot, you can have it choose your set speed. It could be based on the speed limit or the current speed. You can also choose an offset because realistically, most of the time, people aren't going exactly the speed limit. So you don't want to enter Autopilot and then be suddenly dropped down to the speed limit on the dot or something. So this offset percentage is what I have set. I actually have this one at 16%, which may seem pretty high, but kind of is necessary in California. This is where you would turn the blind spot camera on so that when I click the blinker, it will automatically pop up the blind spot camera. You can also turn on blind spot collision warning chime, speed limit warning, and turn on all your emergency settings. I have forward collision warning on late, which some people might find crazy, but I find it to sometimes be a little too early and a little too aggressive letting me know because I'm paying attention most of the time. So early may be the right setting for you, but I have it on late. And then lane departure avoidance, I have on warning instead of assist because I've had times where it thought I was not supposed to be changing lanes, but I was and had the blinker on and everything, and it was frustrating. So for child lock, you can change the setting here. Of course, you can enable the child lock right here, and then here you could choose the option, but you can also set it here in locks. So you can have both doors left or right only, or have it off. You can also turn window lock here on or off, but it's also available in the main settings. Next is walk away door lock. So when you walk away from the car with either your phone or your key fob, it will automatically lock and realize that you're walking away. A nice option here is that you can exclude home so that it won't be locked if it's just sitting in your garage, so that you can go out to the garage and the car's not locked. You can just get into it. Another thing that can be helpful for safety here is driver door unlock mode. So when the car first unlocks, it will actually only unlock the driver door. So if you get into a parking lot somewhere and go into park, it will automatically only unlock this door for your safety. Then you can choose some settings as to if your car doors or your doors and windows are open, and it will push notifications to your app. You can also exclude home here. But I'm actually going to change this right now to doors and windows because pretty much the rest of the time I'm going to want to know that my car, I left a door or a window open. Then there's lock confirmation sound and close windows on lock. So as soon as you walk away, the windows will automatically close for you. This can be pretty nice when you arrive somewhere. Now for lights, again, I said I like to do auto. You can turn dome lights to auto, auto high beams, headlights after exit, and then steering wheel lights. Not a ton of stuff to show you there, but then display settings, I keep it on auto because I like it to switch between light and dark mode, but you can choose to just do exclusively dark mode. You can choose auto brightness. This is where you would do screen cleaning mode. If you're needing to clean the screen, you tap that and then you clean your screen. It tells you only to use a soft cloth designed for monitors and not to use cleaners or wet wipes, which is one benefit of a screen protector is I don't have to care about any of that. Tap and hold to exit. Here's where you would change language and stuff, as well as how you look at time, how you look at distance, miles versus kilometers, Fahrenheit versus Celsius, all that stuff. Now this is where you can change between percentage or distance. I always recommend percentage because it just gets the miles off of your mind and you're not constantly looking and going, wait, I'm not getting the optimal range on my Tesla. I'm supposed to get 272 miles in this standard range Model 3 and I'm only getting 263. That's all related to a bunch of factors in efficiency, and it's just going to be way easier to look at a percentage. That's my experience, at least, unless you're maybe constantly needing to worry about the miles. But another place that you can change that as well is right up here. Just tap and it'll change over. 133 miles, 54%. And again, that's saving to the driver profile, as you can see. Under navigation is where you can change the volume of your navigation assist if you want the voice or not. You press this button to mute it entirely, which is what I always have on. Automatic navigation will automatically navigate it to where it thinks you're going. So if you're at home and it's the morning, it will try to automatically route you to work if you have that programmed in there, and usually it's getting it right. Or if you sync your calendar as well, it will automatically route you to your next calendar destination. If you put the address in there, it can be pretty useful. Trip Planner I think is absolutely necessary. It adds supercharger stops if necessary. I don't see why you'd want this off because then you wouldn't know you need to charge. And then online routing is really nice because you can adjust it to only reroute if it's saving you a certain amount of time. I actually have this at 10 minutes because sometimes it's taking me on some insane route and it can be stressful making a bunch of unprotected left turns just to save me 5 or less minutes, when in reality that's not a big deal. So I have that at 10 minutes. You can also avoid ferries, avoid tolls, or use HOV lanes. Now use HOV lanes usually mostly applies just when you have navigate on autopilot, but I'll go ahead and turn that on because we do have the carpool stickers. For safety, you can turn off allow mobile access if you needed to for some reason, but most of the time you're going to want that, and that is your app. You can also power off the car here, choose a speed limit mode if you want that for someone, and you can choose a pin for that as well from the app. And then Sentry mode settings are pretty important. So first off, we have Sentry mode on, and I currently have it excluded from home and work because both of those places I am using a garage. So I don't want it constantly using up battery to film with all the cameras when there's absolutely nothing it needs to be filming and the car is totally safe. But if you're parked on the street at home or you want to be absolutely sure, you can turn that off so that home is also being Sentry mode recorded. Then if you want to see the cameras live on your phone, you have to click this and choose View Live Camera via mobile app, and then you can live stream all the cameras from the car to your app. Dash cam right here, I always like to have on honk turned on. So if I honk the horn, it's automatically going to save the dash cam clip from that period of time. That's very, very helpful because if you were getting in an accident or something, you likely honked the horn, and then it's automatically saving the clip. You don't have to remember to go save it. If you're inserting a new USB drive into your car, this is where you would format it, or you could delete the dash cam clips if the drive got full. And then there's a few other settings to talk about. Park assist chimes are useful to tell you that you're close to stuff, and it's using the ultrasonic sensors to tell you you're getting very close to different areas of the car, and it will visualize it on your left here, but sometimes it's a bit much, especially if you're in like a drive-through, or if you're always pulling into a really tight garage, but you're confident in your ability there, you might want to turn that off. Joe mode turns down the volume of all the chimes in the car. Very useful because sometimes they can be a little loud. Now, pin to drive can be a fairly useful feature, and sometimes people are extra worried about Bluetooth security and a Bluetooth relay that may be able to take over the car and bypass some setting or something. And so to have double security here, you can turn on pin to drive and make a pin, and now I have to type in 1, 2, 3, 4 every time I want to drive. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, and now I can drive. Some may find that kind of frustrating that they have to use a pin to drive, so don't turn it on in that case. But if you really want double security there you have it. Similar situation here, you can turn on a glove box pin so that nobody who gets in the car can access it without your pin. So if I go right here to the main settings, try to open the glove box, I have to also type in a pin. It's kind of like two-factor authentication for opening the glove box and driving the car. Go ahead and turn that off. No, my pin is not actually 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the last one in safety is cabin overheat protection. I always have this on because I'm frequently parked in California where this car can get over 100 degrees, or I've seen 120 if I had this off. Not many settings to customize in the service menu. Usually Tesla Service is going to handle that for you, but you can get to the owner's manual here, or you can put it in car wash mode. A lot of people don't know about this, but this will allow the car to actually properly operate in a car wash. You can also do things like a camera calibration if your autopilot cameras need calibrating. Wheel configuration, you can change it if you changed your wheels, all that kind of stuff. Most of the time, I don't think people are going to be using these. In the software menu, you can choose this one option for software update preference, and you can choose standard or advanced. I always have it on advanced, but it doesn't seem like there's really a rhyme or reason to Tesla pushing out updates based on this setting. It seems like it's just for people's brains, but put it on advanced if you really want updates really fast. At the very bottom of software though, this might be very important to you, is data sharing. So Tesla, with your permission, will collect a lot of data from the car, and it's to improve certain features. It's just like you would do with certain apps or programs to allow them to collect anonymous data to improve it. So we have this stuff on, but you might not want it on, and you'll have to agree to this or not the first time you enter your car, but if you forgot about it, that's where it is. So if for some reason you don't trust them anymore, you can go ahead and turn all of this stuff off. So you could choose no, or you could have it ask each drive. So every time you go to drive the car, it's going to ask you if it's okay that it's collecting data. So one more setting that you may not know is there, Bluetooth. You can open up the Bluetooth thing right here, and then you would think that you would tap the phone that you're connected to open its settings. But no, you actually have to click Connect Phone, and then it opens the Bluetooth settings, and then you can do the settings for your phone. You can choose Priority Device, so if multiple people are getting into the car at once with 2 different keys, it will prioritize that one device. Usually you assign this to the owner of the car. You can sync contacts and recent calls, sync messages, or chime on a new message. This is also where you would disconnect or forget device. Then another setting can be accessed from here as well. Up here is where you can adjust your tone, balance options, and sources for music. So if you want to turn on or turn off a certain music source, that's where you do it. It's in audio settings. Once you open one of the audio apps, click up here, and it's down in sources. And then of course you can adjust your balance here, turn on immersive sound to auto, standard, low, or off if you want any of those settings. I just recommend playing with all this stuff and seeing what you like the best. Also, if you're in navigation and you want to get to your navigation settings, but you don't want to go through all those menus, you'll notice right here is your next navigation step. You'll notice these three dots right here. Tap that and it'll bring up these options to add a stop, edit trip, or go to settings, and then you have all your navigation settings. In the Tesla app, you'll have all your basic controls that you can definitely learn by just clicking through all of them and kind of figuring it out, but there are some settings here as well. In the top right, you'll click on your profile here, and then you can scroll down to settings. For settings, you can turn on calendar sync, so if your calendar is not syncing and you want it to, that's where you do it. It's in the Tesla app under settings. And then you can also change notification settings here. So selected vehicles, so you can choose which vehicles you want notifications for if you have multiple in there, and that can be helpful if you want access to maybe your spouse's or your significant other's car from time to time, but you don't want notifications constantly because you're not actually using it. It can be helpful to turn that to current vehicle only. You can get notifications for the car alarm, for charging interrupted, charging started, or charging completed. I just have interrupted. I don't really worry about when it started or completed. But for some, maybe if you're worried about it and you really want to know that charging started or completed, you can turn those on. You can have a notification for a software update, and then for cabin overheat protection or preconditioning completed. I like preconditioning completed because I can turn it on and then maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, depending on how intense the climate is outside, it will give me a notification, and then I know my car is good to go and I'm not going to be blasted by AC when I get in the car. So that is a full deep dive into all the settings that you can enable and change around on a Tesla, especially a Model 3 or a Model Y, but most of this stuff largely will apply to the Model S and X as well. A few of those settings are buried kind of deep in some menus or in weird spots, so I hope this was helpful for you figuring out some settings that maybe you didn't know otherwise. In the meantime, if you want to see a video about why I sold my 2020 Tesla Model Y after just over 2 years, you can check out that video linked up here or in the description below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.